All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Hetal Shah joining us right here on the RJ Vaibhav Show. Hetal, thank you so much for joining in. Pleasure to have you. And you're officially our first guest on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Vaibhav, for inviting me to your first podcast. It's an honor. And as always, I wish you all the best with all the amazing work that you have been doing, and especially these podcast series that you've recently started. They are fantastic. Very thoughtful as the topic for today, right? Thoughtful Thursdays, but also your daily topics that you've come up with. They're very creative and fantastic to listen to. So, congratulations on that. And I am looking forward to the conversation today. A bit nervous, man. I'm not sure what you're gonna ask me, but hope you're kind and we can have a fun conversation.
So let me firstly tell you, this is a totally unscripted show. Firstly, thank you so much for the kind words. Let me tell listeners also that I've known Hetal for close to about 20 years now.
Yeah,
We go way back. And when I thought of this podcast, and we're doing a leadership series where we try to call people from all aspects of life where they've shown a lot of leadership skills and leadership abilities. And the first person I could think of on my list was Hetal right here, because in his field of work, I think he's shown a lot of leadership qualities.
thank you.
So that's why you're here. A, you're here because you're my friend, and B, you're here because you totally deserve to be here.
Thank you, Vaibhav. I appreciate that.
No, so, treat these conversations as casual
Yep,
conversations that we would have at a dinner table,
of
right? So
course.
this is not an interview. This is just a casual conversation. And, we've known each other for so long, yet I've never had these kind of conversations with you, because we always have some fun and, frolic
Yeah.
times, but we never talk about work when we meet.
No,
So, it's great that you're here, and as you knew from the intro, guys, Hetal is from the ticketing world. He's done this for a long time. So let me ask you my first basic question. Okay, if I'm a layman listening to this podcast, and all I know about the ticketing industry is that you go to a website, you purchase your tickets, you get those tickets, either you get paper tickets at the venue, or those tickets get emailed to you,
yeah.
right? And nowadays you get these barcodes on your phone that you can store in your phone wallet.
Yeah.
What made you get into this industry? Let's start from there.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it was passion for Bollywood, passion for entertainment in general. I'm a music lover at heart, right? So every time there is a concert in town that has something to do with music, I was always there.
Hmm.
And I was always
Yeah.
standing in line, or I was going to these different grocery stores around town, right, looking for tickets. And back in those
Right.
days, we used to split tickets up where certain stores got certain sections. So you had to go from store to store to figure out which store had good sections that you wanted to sit in. And also, we realized in 2002, we were coming to that time where we were all uh, time poor but money rich, right? So a lot of us didn't
Right.
have
Right.
didn't have the time to go stand in lines or time to go shop around at different locations to go purchase tickets. And we were sitting down, a couple of friends over lunch, and we said, "Hey, listen, this there were two events coming up. We distinctly remember it was the World Cup, I think, in 2002. That was coming up, and there were local theaters was going to show the matches, and we knew there was going to be
Hmm.
line for tickets. And
Right.
also, Adnan Sami was coming for the first time with Asha Bhosle, and that
Okay.
was supposed to be a super hit concert that was coming in town. So we thought, hey, what if there was a way to create a online ticketing platform that catered to the South Asian market, right? Because it is one of
Right.
the
Right.
biggest industries. So that was really the inspiration behind it. Is my personal passion, and then seeing really
Right.
that gap in the market with
Right.
no one
Right.
focused on selling tickets online and providing that service exclusively. We had some yellow pages type websites that were selling tickets on the site, but nothing that was
Okay.
exclusively focused on selling tickets online. And mind you, back in 2002, the global e-commerce market was less than half a
Right.
trillion, right? I mean, we were looking at 300, $400 million in e-commerce sales back in 2001,
Right.
2002, which is now over a few
Right.
trillion now. So
People were still kind of figuring out emails, right? People
yes,
were still kind of figuring out emails.
absolutely
Yeah.
right. People are still
Yeah.
figuring out emails. We were one of the first companies to have 2D barcodes on every one of our tickets from day one, right? So
Wow.
the vision was there from a technology perspective. The vision was there from a service perspective, and the vision was there from catering to the South Asian diaspora that lives in diaspora over there, lives in the U.S. Give them an easy,
Right.
convenient way of purchasing tickets online.
No, I mean, you obviously were able to see something in this industry, in this field that not very many people saw at the time, right? Right now, you were pretty much you kind of saw where the ticketing industry is going. You saw where the internet is going.
Yeah,
You saw where e-commerce is going. So obviously, you're a visionary for that. You could envision that. So kudos to you for that. I think
thanks.
it takes a lot of guts during that time. I can only imagine 2001, 2002, when not a lot of people are talking about the internet. Not a lot of people are talking about stores online, or
Yeah.
they're not even comfortable going online and purchasing something.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think there was also this notion of, we talk about fraud now, but imagine the
Y-
fear in people wanting to use credit card online and not knowing who they're spending money with and the
Exactly.
possibility of fraud. So when we got started from a technology perspective, protecting customers' data and protecting their
Hmm.
financial information was two of the biggest points that we had in our vision, in our technology architecture to assure that we would not have any kind of leakages of data or any fraudulent activities that happen on our platform.
Right. And so take me through this, right? 2002, you start this. I'm sure you saw and faced some obstacles,
Yeah.
like any startup does, or any company that's starting out. They face some sort of a difficulty, or was it an easy ride for you?
No, I mean, like you said, I mean, every startup goes through its pain. And back in 2002, I mean, we were very lucky. We had some folks in town who, to a certain degree, understood that hey, this thing called internet, that this thing called e-commerce could work. But we really had to fight to
Right.
get even part of the inventory to be on our website. We had to convince them that look, you've got a show, you're expecting 5,000 people, at least put 500 tickets online and see how it goes, right? So convincing those folks
Right.
to list their tickets online was a big deal. Second big deal
Right.
was trusting the digital transaction, right? The
Right.
promoters,
Right.
if no matter how advanced you get with technology, they liked seeing and counting cash or looking at the number of physical checks that people had written
The
for,
tangibility of
yeah,
it,
for their
right? You
tickets,
need
right?
to see something tangible.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
they went to a
Yeah.
local store. They see their stack of tickets are down by 20%, and in return they have a stack of cash or check in their hand that they're counting, and they're putting it in their whatever accounting software or hand accounting that they were doing to say, hey, you know what, this is the money that I made. Versus they had to
Right.
trust someone new that said, listen, the money would go from a buyer's account to an intermediary account, and from an intermediary
Hmm.
account, it would eventually make it to your bank account, right? So
Wow.
that was a huge struggle back in those days to be able to say, hey, by the time you are confirming the tickets to the buyer, but I
Mm-hmm.
am not getting money until 2 days, 3 days after I've sold the ticket, right? So
Right.
that was one of the biggest obstacles that we ran into when it came to convincing promoters, venues, and others to essentially say that sell tickets online. And then you look at the reverse side of things.
So,
Yeah, go ahead. You were saying
right.
something.
No, no, no. Finish your
Yeah,
thought.
so then you look at the reverse side of things from a consumer's point of view, right? You gave them a $50 and you got a ticket, right? You got a physical ticket that
Mm-hmm.
had the name of the venue, date, time all written on it, versus you paid
Right.
the money, you received some sort of an email that said this was your ticket, and then let's say you purchased the
Right.
tickets 10, 15 days in advance, we would have customers call us, a few days prior saying, hey, listen, I bought this online. Is this still legitimate? What do I do? Do I need to go convert it into a physical ticket, etc.? Right. So there was that side of convincing the buyer themselves to say, hey, listen, trust the digital format, right? When you get to the venue,
Right.
you will be given entry, right? You're not going to be sent back. So there were challenges on all three sides that we had to face.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Now, this you're explaining about the ticketing as far as events are concerned, right? Like for concerts, events. What was the procedure like for, like, say, a movie ticket, right? Now, you mentioned that you had to wait a couple of days for that money to arrive on your end. But like a movie ticket transaction, if someone pays for that ticket, they're watching something right there and then, right?
Yes.
So, for example, I'm going for a movie tomorrow. I book my tickets on your platform today, and I go and watch that movie tomorrow. But yet, I've had the experience, I've had the service provided to me, but the money hasn't come to you yet.
Yes.
How anxious was that making you?
That was so from a provider's perspective, we were confident that money was in our bank account, right? So the intermediary
Yeah,
bank account
yeah.
usually received the money within 12 hours, right? Um,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
it was the exhibitor that had the biggest issue, right? They're used to seeing money come into their cash register
Seeing that cash.
right
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
versus having to wait another day or 2 days. There have been times where we guaranteed funds, right? So this was one of the other challenges that we had in addition to running a startup and all the costs that are associated with running the business, we had to essentially guarantee um, the amount of money from a day's sales perspective, right, into an escrow account so that the promoter had the exhibitor had the confidence to say, hey, listen, if something went wrong, there is enough money in the escrow account to make up for a day's sales. So we used
Right.
many different tools that were at our advantage, but one of the biggest tools that we used was networking, right, and building that trust and showing
Right.
to the exhibitor the full transparency in terms of online reporting, every penny matching up with the reports and the amount that was being submitted into their bank accounts, right? So it was challenging, but we had built some great relationships, especially in Dallas, right? And being based in Dallas, we worked with some of the local folks, and we built a reputation for ourselves. So when we started to
Right.
venture outside of Dallas, let's say into Houston, into Chicago, into Washington area, people would call up
Right.
our local promoter and saying, "Hey, can you trust these guys?" Right? And
Right.
that's
Right.
where that started to build up and say, yes, you know what? These guys are genuine. They do their business the right way, and they're very transparent when it comes to money. Because you can imagine, Weber, right? Even back in those days, we were holding at any point in time for a concert $100,000, right? For
Oh yeah.
for for an event.
Absolutely.
So it was a huge sum of money,
And with inflation, I just want to give a perspective to our listeners. If you count inflation, that's probably 800, 900K,
easily,
or about $1 million today.
easily,
Yeah.
easily. Yeah, and some
right?
of the recent events
Yeah.
that we had done, especially in UAE, we were crossing 400, $500,000 easily that we would have in holding on behalf of a promoter.
Wow. Wow. That's insane amount of money, and that's insane amount of trust.
Yes.
And that's I want to now foray into how does a ticketing business make money, right? One of course you're selling the tickets for the promoter, so
Yeah.
you're probably charging some sort of a fee.
Correct.
Um, or is it based on a per ticket sold basis?
Yeah. So we
How does
had,
that work?
yeah, we had a very flexible model. There were multiple ways that we were essentially making money covering costs of running the business, right? One is, like you said, a contract with the promoter to say for every ticket that is sold, there is either a flat fee.
Mm-hmm.
So many, when it came to movies, it was always about a flat fee because movie tickets were always ranging between somewhere between $7 and $15 a ticket, right? So it was a low
Correct.
transaction game. So from that perspective, it was the flat fee always made sense. So there was a flat fee that was charged from an exhibitor perspective, a flat fee that was charged
Mm-hmm.
from a buyer perspective. When it came
Right.
to larger events with tickets ranging all the way from 30 to 500, we would have a percentage based pricing, right? Where a certain
Mm-hmm.
percentage is charged on both sides, or one side is a flat fee, the other side is percentage. Another way of making money in this business, what we understood from day one from a technology perspective is data is king, right? And we had the way to
Right.
leverage the footfall and the business, the online marketplace that we had built. That marketplace had a digital real estate value, right? We talk about
Okay.
avatars and
Yeah.
those kinds of digital personas now, but we had been selling digital personas from back in 2002, right? And we've been telling
Right.
our promoters, we've been telling our advertisers that, hey, you now have a digital persona of Hetal or a digital persona of Vaibhav walking into your digital storefront behaving a certain way, right? So we didn't have the
Right. Right.
level of tracking that we have today available back then, but there was still enough tracking available for each one of your online customer to be able to track pattern, to be able to over a period of time understand the wallet strength of that individual, right? If this person came in and every single time they bought a VIP ticket to a concert,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
knew that person's wallet strength, right? And their interest in a particular type of shows, particular type of events, versus you knew that, when every time there is a Shah Rukh Khan movie, Vaibhav was there first day, first show. He did it first time, second time, three times. Now I know that Vaibhav's a Shah Rukh Khan fan, right? So now when there is a Shah Rukh Khan movie releasing, I'm going to be able to
Mm-hmm.
upsell, cross sell additional information or additional items to Vaibhav based on the information that I've gathered for Vaibhav's visits onto MeraTicket.com, right?
Wow.
So that's how
Okay.
the business works, right? There is the transaction fee, which covers kind of the basic costs, but it's really about
Yeah.
the brands wanting to know the behavior patterns of each one of these consumers that come onto the digital marketplace like an online ticketing platform and leverage that information to cross sell, upsell their services and their products.
Wow. I mean, you're totally blowing my mind right now, firstly, because this is 2001, 2002 we're talking about. And right now, what you're explaining to me is what we are in discussion today in today's times,
Yeah,
right? We're talking about artificial intelligence to know how and how a person behaves online and kind of do targeted marketing. That's
yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
yeah,
getting
absolutely.
at, right?
Absolutely.
And you're saying that was possible in 2001 and 2002, and you were doing it since then.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I want to dig deep into this because I want to know, for example, you gave an example of myself, right? Like I went ahead and bought a ticket for a particular movie. I went again next month, bought a similar sort of a movie ticket for a similar superstar or an actor, right? Now, you have that stored into your portal. That data is stored into your portal.
Yes.
How do you manage to get it out to, say, some other business who are going to run targeted ads or send me emails or send me something that might interest me? So how does that work? Take me through that. I know this is going to get a little technical, but I do want to know how that worked, especially during that time.
Yeah. So I think at that time, the biggest medium of communicating online was the email, right? We didn't have the likes of social
Right, right,
media the way we have today, right? And
right,
we
right,
also had a very loose set of PII rules back then, right? Um, as
right,
PII became more stringent, we got into this whole aspect of GDPR. Then there was the notion of PCI compliance, which is your credit card information, right? All of the privacy that's related
right,
to your
right.
digital transactions started to come in. So what we had to do is essentially obfuscate your personal information from the advertiser.
Mm-hmm.
So all we were able to do at that time is based on your digital footprint, we extracted and aggregated a set of information for customer A. The advertiser had
Right.
no idea that customer A was Vaibhav, right? So we would have
Wow.
a
Okay.
conversation with with our advertiser to tell them, hey, and at that time I remember this Dish Network was a big thing. I don't know. I know
It
we
was,
all
yeah.
we all stream these days, so I don't know if our listeners even
We all grew
remember.
up on it.
Even remember the
Uh,
packages with 3 channels and 5 channels that we used to get, right? So there was
Bloody
a
expensive, but we all
we
remember it.
all remember it, right? So there was a company that used to provide Dish Network connections, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
had
Right.
this conversation with them to say, hey, listen, now I know folks who live in the Dallas Fort Worth area with certain Bollywood
Mm-hmm.
interest, right? Now inside of that Bollywood interest, I know people who go watch Hindi movies, people who go watch non-Hindi movies, right? So now I'm
Right.
able to do a
Right.
level of segmentation on the data that
Right.
I have. And I'm using these words segmentation and clustering, which have become very popular recently. But segmentation and clustering has been around for decades, right? Even in the offline world, we do a lot of segmentation and
Right. And
clustering.
that's why I'm blown away. That's why I'm blown away with this conversation, because I think our listeners are also going to be pleasantly surprised to hear that this has been around for ages now.
Yeah, this has been around for ages. Even in the offline world, segmentation and clustering was very common, right? We took that
Wow.
aspect of segmentation and we said, hey, listen, now I have, let's say, 100 people that have purchased tickets on my platform. Of those 100 people, I've got 10 people who belong in this segment, 10 people who belong in this segment. So I've been
Right.
able to divide it up into 10 different segments. I'm able to take that information back to my Dish Network affiliate, right, who was installing dishes every single day to say, hey, listen, do you want to reach out to this
Right.
10 people? Do you want to reach out to this 40 people? Or do you want to reach out to all 100? Right? And depending on their
Right.
budget, depending on what
Right.
specials were going on, depending on the time of the year, right? Maybe
Wow.
it was Diwali versus Ugadi, right? And if it was Ugadi, they wanted to reach out to a certain segment that was in our database. Versus if it was Diwali, they wanted to reach out to a certain segment in our database, right? So that's the way this personalized marketing is what we called it at that time worked, and it worked really well. And our main mode of communication was email.
Wow. This is definitely some great information for the listeners listening right now, because what Google and Facebook are doing today, this was possible about 20 years ago,
Yes,
20, 21 years ago. This was already being made possible. So
yes.
It's amazing to know. Now, I do want to kind of pivot here and talk about what kind of as your business grew, right, and as people started to trust the company more, and trust you more. You gained a lot more business. How has your leadership ability helped you, or what have you done differently in order to sustain that same amount of commitment
Yeah.
that you had on day one towards your business? What made you, basically, what made you just go on?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that I learned from this experience is how to calm your nerves, right? Because
Yeah, yeah,
imagine, before an event, you've got 5,000 people walking into a venue, um, thousands of them holding your digital ticket, and they want to get into the venue as quickly as possible, right? So your nerves
right,
are
right.
off the hook, right? So one
Oh
of the
yeah,
things that I learned is how to calm your nerves through these types of very stressful situations. You've gone through hosting events and managing events yourself, right? So you know how nerve wracking it can be
yeah,
when thousands of people are walking in, parking, and wanting to get in as quickly as possible. And then we had this new technology
absolutely.
where we had 2D barcodes at that time, and we had those old 2D scanners to scan people in from
Right.
a ticket perspective. So we're just trying to make sure that the technology works correctly at that time. We didn't have
Yeah,
hotspots and those kinds of things that are so easily available today, right? So we had to make sure that
right.
at venues we had internet available. So those types of tough situations really taught me to learn to calm my nerves, learn to work patiently with people, right? I know how the
Yeah,
technology is supposed to
yeah.
work, but the person on the other side does not know how it works, right? So, as a leader, I
Right.
think you have to be patient, right? You have to be patient with different
Absolutely.
types of skill sets that exist, not just within your organization, but also within your customer base. Every customer comes in with a completely different expectation. And we had people who'd
True.
walk into a Navratri event who are in their 50s and 60s, who have just purchased tickets for the first time and don't even know how to check their email, walk up and
Right.
wanting an
Right.
entry, and versus a new college grad who's all up and running with technology, and he's getting impatient with the fact that he still has to stand in line because the person in front of them is still trying to figure out where their email is to show the confirmation, right? So I think
Right.
patience is one of the key virtues of a leader,
Absolutely.
that allows you to connect with different generations, allows you to connect with different customer base, and really serve them in a manner that they expect to be served, right? And it's your patience
Hmm.
that always works.
Wow. I think this is definitely some great advice for all the youngsters listening right now, because right now everything, with technology, with life, with work, with everything, everybody wants everything right now, right? Like everything is very fast. Right now we're used to 500 gig internet.
Yeah.
Uh, so right now everything is very quick, but I can only imagine what it was like back then in 2002, and I was obviously a part of your journey as well. I've seen you grow as a company. And speaking of growth, I know something made you go back to India
Hmm.
in the middle and leave it all over here, right? And um firstly, what was it that made you leave everything, something that you had built with so much care, with so much hard work? What made you just, and it's very difficult, mind you, it's very difficult when you have something, really great that's going for you, and to kind of leave it out and just take a drastic decision. It take a very difficult decision in life.
Hmm.
It's very difficult, and only leaders can do that. And that's why I ask you this question: what made you take that plunge and give it all up?
Yeah. Well, so we made that plunge mainly because my life was crazy, right? I mean, I was working full time, I was running a business, I was doing radio with you, right? And the kids were growing up, right? I just had
Yeah.
my son who was about a year old at that time. My daughter was 5, 6 years old. So we wanted to, both my wife and I made a very conscious decision that we wanted to spend more time with our
Right.
kids. And it's not
Right.
that you couldn't do that here, but I think, as they say, यहाँ का माहौल, right? The way of the world here essentially somehow puts you in this race. So we wanted to take a step back, and we thought
Mm-hmm.
that this was an opportunity for our kids to grow up in India. My wife and I always reminisce about how we grew up in India and the time we spent
Right.
with just friends in general, with our family, extended family, your neighbors, right? Were your closest
Yeah.
family in India, right? As we were growing up.
Right.
So we were
Right.
reminiscing about that, and we wanted our children to have a similar experience. So that was really the reason for
Main
making
motive.
making that
Yeah.
decision. Now, as
Right.
as that was happening, I was talking to a few friends who were in the industry, in the event industry, and we were talking about the
Mm-hmm.
growth that India was going through and the whole digital transformation that India was going through in 2014. So we didn't exactly have to give up on the concept of Mera Ticket. What ended up happening, and this is
Right.
that
Okay.
silver lining, right? And somebody up there is always looking out for you. So when we went to India,
Right.
we saw the new era of thought leadership when it came to the Indian political environment in 2014, and the whole push for
Right.
digital payment, digital transaction. And we saw that to be a leapfrogging moment for Ticket. And we said, why don't we launch this in India as well and see how it goes? And one
Right.
thing led to another, and we ended up launching the platform in India as well. And it was November of 2015, I believe, is when, or 16, is when the whole demonetization happened, right? And that
Correct.
essentially pushed digital transaction in India into a brand new trajectory, something that no one had expected, right? And that
Right.
propelled the platform further. We grew the platform
That was
into,
2016, by the way.
yes, that was 2016, right? So we moved in towards the middle of 2014, and then we continued to build and evolve
Right.
the platform. So in 2016, when that happened, um, it propelled it to a next level. We ended up getting a lot of support from the local businesses there. Some of the biggest names in Bollywood came
Mm-hmm.
to our platform, and we were
Right.
able to take it to the next level. And in 2019, we found a set of investors for the platform, and we exited, right. So that was the whole journey from 2002 till what we did in 2018, 2019.
Wow, that's amazing. Firstly, I definitely admire the courage that you have.
Thank you.
Not everyone has this courage. Not everyone has this belief that hey, you know what? I can start from scratch again. I can make it work again, and I can make it even bigger and better the second time I do it. Such a great conversation that we've had, and to be very, very honest, we've never had this conversation
No,
ever in about 20 years, right,
no, because
Ethel?
we're always
This
talking
is this
about
is the
movies,
first time.
music. We're talking about events. We're talking about everything else but work, right? That's the most awesome part about being friends with you, man. I don't have to talk about work.
No, but this is going to be really helpful for a lot of entrepreneurs out there, right? And no matter what field they're in or foraying into or going into, right? It's going to help them, because the blueprint that you just set out was very simple. The simple thing is you have to believe in your product,
Yeah.
you have to believe in your service, you have to be extremely patient, is what I got out of this conversation, and you have to be very innovative.
Yeah.
You have to think 5 steps ahead of the game. You have to think about technology. You were thinking about AI before AI was even born. Before AI was even being talked about the way it's talked about right now,
Yes.
right? So, kudos to you for that. And I think you have inspired a lot of people today.
Thanks, Vaibhav. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I wish you lots of success. I know I'm your first guest, and hope you have lots of awesome guests coming up in your podcast in the future. I'm looking forward to more Thoughtful Thursdays and all the other podcast series that you've got, man. Kudos to you for always doing something new, and congratulations on this amazing podcast series, man.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for being on the RJ Vaibhav show. And until next time, I'll call you up tomorrow, maybe. All right. Okay. All
All
right.
right. Talk
Thank
to you
you.
later. Bye.